Hello, Francesca. How you doing? All right, I just got done reading through this, and this is good stuff. Thank you very much. This really adds a lot of information here, and I think I'm going to touch on just about everything you've said here. But you're definitely heading in the right direction, and I think one of the neat things is the fact that you have kind of alluded to what you learned in between the two iterations, and I love reading the fact that you're getting comfortable in InDesign. That's fantastic. Adobe programs are by no means difficult, but there's a lot to learn. Uh, uh, so I'm really, really glad that you're having positive experience with adding InDesign to your design toolkit. That's fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and jump over to the work. I've got the work up somewhere. Where is it? There it is, right there. All right, we're looking really good. There's a couple of things. You know what? I want to pull the PDF up. Wait, this is the PDF. Hello. Let me just reduce. That's exactly what I'm going for right now. So you're probably wondering why we have this view right here. The reason I brought this up and zoomed out a little bit is to get you to look at the margins. Right now, your margins are so tight. You are packed right on top of this. Basically, in a lot of situations, you're in a no print zone. You want to establish good margins. A really great technique to think about: how big should my margins be? Well, we have to ask ourselves some questions. Number one, what is the intent of the project? This is a magazine spread. What do we know about magazines? We know that people hold them quite typically with two hands, like this, right? So if I have my magazine, I'm going to grab my book here as an example, but I would hold the magazine like this, right? Meaning, if I turn it over, you see where my thumbs are? That's a great indication to determine where your margin should be. There's no room right here. If I was going to hold this magazine and read it with two hands, my thumb would be impeding on the type here and somewhere over here over the image. What you want to do is you want to add enough area, just enough margin there to make it comfortable and to be functional so that a person's hand or thumb doesn't cover the type when they're holding the edge of the magazine. Well, here's an example right here. There's a nice margin right there. And let me zoom out here again as well. What is this? This is a JPEG, so I'll have to zoom out like this. Look at those gorgeous margins all the way around. And they're functional too as well. As you can see, we add folio information in the bottom margin. So look at how gorgeous those margins are, and then take a look at how tightly packed everything is in here. So for that reason, I highly recommend establishing some good margins, some good space in your margins. Be consistent too with those margins. All right, and the next thing I see at this level of zoom is there's a little bit of conflict, um, a little bit of conflicting hierarchy going on, and it's based on visual. It's not based on typography, though I can show you a couple of tricks here that we're going to talk about in a second. But the one thing I'm seeing here is that we have the bulk of the eye is going to go right here. Okay, when the viewer opens up this spread in the magazine, they're going to go right here to the image. And that's natural to a high degree, that's natural. But this is so visually heavy down here with the frame around the work, with the denseness of the typography for the caption, with the blue background under the caption. This is it's got so much visual weight that it's stealing hierarchy in an area where hierarchy should be prominent, and that's at the beginning of the article where this gorgeous headline area resides. All right, so we'll talk about rectifying that, and I think that's really all I have at this level of zoom. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and we'll start talking about some other details. Okay, so as we did look at this area, we want to increase the hierarchy associated with this area. I think one of the problems here is the fact that you're using stroke only for this typeface. Presumably, this typeface does have a version that you can fill in, as we can see by this line, this byline right here. I would go ahead and use this, fill the color instead of using stroke only. Go ahead and fill this. So you have your fill color and your stroke color at the same as at this color right here. That's going to create a lot of hierarchy right here. And I think this is a pretty interesting typographic composition right here. I think one thing that might even work is just taking this and we'll try to eliminate this diagonal here. Right now, this diagonal is creating some phantom lines that are kind of pointing. They're pointing to that byline, which is okay, but I think the byline right there where it's situated doesn't need any phantom lines. It doesn't need any leading lines to it. So I think this kind of diagonal here, we can kind of rectify that a little bit just by taking this art and pulling it back a little bit, maybe assembling it right here. So instead of having this kind of shift where we follow a top to bottom, moving on a diagonal, we start that top to bottom, but then we come back with our neck. We'll kind of put the typographic headline back into equilibrium as opposed to kind of borderline being a little off balance to the right hand side. So again, in summary, pull that back. Either align it with the B or maybe even with the P, or try something with placement there. This by Huisu, I would use a different typeface of that. I would use a traditional typeface, maybe even a traditional sans serif. I'm also going to ask you to reconsider the typeface for your call out and for your deck head, as well as your captions. And I think the reason being there is that right now this typeface it's not an easy typeface to read. It's not. It's very difficult to read. It's all cap. It's very, very flourishy. It's got a lot of visual embellishments, and it's a decorative typeface. So we really should refrain from using it for any extended type text application. So I would recommend a regular sans serif typeface here, maybe something from the Universe family, Gill Sans, even Helvetica will work beautifully right in here for the deck head, for the byline, for the pull quote or the call out, and for the captions. Okay, so back to the deck head itself. The deck head, I would remove that that color bar. Right now you've got these color bars, which are actually, they're impeding hierarchy as well. Your hierarchy should be based on typography and not color. So right now you're putting these color bars behind your type, and that's something we kind of want to stay away from in design. Okay, if you do want to use those background, I would, instead of just using this random gray color and this random color here, what I would do is I would come right down here in this image and sample color out of this image. So maybe for this type color, you could use this color from the hair, right? And then if you wanted to use a color for the actual deck head, maybe come in here and select something out of here. It looks like you got this color from the background here, so that's excellent. You know what I'm talking about, right? So maybe introduce some color from the image into your typography in these different areas. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit further so that we can, okay, let's look at yeah, definitely this is really difficult to read. It's all cap and it's a little too flourishy. It's a decorative typeface. So I would, again, recommend that you change that. Try to give a little space between the deck head and where the type starts. So a little breathing area there. You don't have to span both columns with the deck head. Let me just show you an example. See this deck head right here? See how it doesn't span both columns? It's kind of indented on both sides. So you can do that. I think that would be provide a little bit more white space, a little more inviting to the transition from the headline to the deck head to the actual type. Good drop cap. Pretty good typography throughout. Looking good. No widows, no orphans, nothing to speak of. Rags are a little bit uneven. You've got the rags. You don't want such a great distance between your longest and your shortest lines. Right now, here's your longest line, and here's your shortest line. So there's a pretty good, almost a quarter of a line of type there. So you want to get in there and adjust those rags. And again, just go into Google and do a search on adjusting rags in InDesign. Again, yes, just use a regular sans serif typeface here as opposed to this decorative typeface. And again, we talked about the background color. You could maybe even use a little more space between this, really set this thing aside, a little more space above and below this call out right here. Looking good. No widows, no orphans. Continues on to following page. That's fine right there. Excellent. Okay, now my final recommendation is for this image down here. And I don't know if this frame part of the image. I'm very, very familiar with this work, and I think this frame is part of I'm talking about the black outer frame, part of the image that you got this from the background. This is not part of this original poster. So you may consider just going right here where that kind of cream color is instead of trying to frame that in black. I think it adds a little too much weight. And then again, same comments for the uh, for the caption. The caption itself right now is presented in the same type size as this, which is the same, very close to the same type size here. This is a caption. It should be set at considerably smaller scale than anything else as we follow the rules of hierarchy. So you want to reduce that and probably set it in a oblique or a italic type set there. One thing you may end up doing is pulling this down a little bit. I think that the image is really close to the bottom of the text. You may pull this down a little bit and add your reduced size caption there. Let me see. You may end up with a little extra room, so you want to really think about how you're going to add space before the image, and then you maybe even consider moving this continued onto the following page down here to continued on page whatever. See how that works out with your when you recompose the work based on my recommendations here. So, okay, so hopefully my comments make sense. If not, let me know. I think I covered just about everything I need to cover here. So try employing these comments. I think you're going to love the way the layout looks. It's going to be much, much more inviting. It's going to be much more effective. And that I can promise you. So try it, and let's see where we're at. All right, again, the most important thing right now is to ask any questions as soon as possible so we can get our adjustments made by Sunday night for the final iteration. All right, great job. Thank you very much.